The waters around Pag-asa Island are once again under pressure. On October 12th, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel rammed and damaged a Philippine government boat near the island, escalating tensions in the West Philippine Sea. For many outside observers, this was another flashpoint in a long series of maritime confrontations. But for Manila, it was something more. The first real test of its emerging maritime strategy: sea denial. The clash near Pag-asa was not simply about territory. It was about proving whether the Philippines' new fleet, new doctrines, and new confidence could withstand the gray zone tactics of a much larger power. Pag-asa, or Thitu Island, is small and remote, but strategically irreplaceable. It sits roughly 480 kilometers from Palawan in the middle of the Kalayaan Island group, surrounded by China's militarized outposts and artificial islands. Whoever controls Pag-asa commands surveillance access to one of the most contested corridors in the South China Sea. The island's runway and harbor, modest by global standards, form the last forward position of the Philippine flag in this maritime chessboard. For years, Manila had relied on diplomatic protests and symbolic patrols. But since the Horizon modernization programs began, that strategy has been evolving from passive endurance toward active denial. The October collision reflects China's deliberate gray zone playbook: escalation without open warfare. Coast Guard ships, maritime militia vessels, and laser or water cannon attacks are tools designed to intimidate without triggering collective defense treaties. This method was perfected at Scarborough Shoal in 2012 and refined at Second Thomas Shoal in 2023-2024. The purpose is clear: wear down Philippine resolve through constant pressure, testing both the endurance of its sailors and the credibility of its allies. For years, this asymmetric harassment worked, but today the equation has changed because the Philippines finally has assets capable of responding in kind, both politically and militarily. In the immediate aftermath of the collision, the Philippine Navy stepped up patrols around Pag-asa. Jose Rizal-class frigates were reported operating closer to the island, supported by reconnaissance flights from the Air Force. Defense Secretary Teodoro reiterated that the deployments were defensive, not provocative, emphasizing presence as deterrence. The United States, Japan, and Australia issued statements of support, signaling that an attack in the gray zone can still carry diplomatic and strategic costs. This coordinated reaction illustrates a shift in mindset: deterrence through constant, credible visibility. That mindset lies at the core of the Philippines' sea denial doctrine. Unlike sea control, the ability to dominate and freely operate across maritime space, sea denial seeks only to prevent an adversary from doing the same. It is the strategy of smaller navies facing larger ones: refuse access, disrupt operations, and impose uncertainty. For the Philippines, this approach is not theoretical. It is being shaped by geography, budget, and necessity. The goal is no longer to build a fleet that can challenge China ship for ship, but to create a distributed web of sensors, missiles, and aircraft that together make hostile incursions costly and unpredictable. The tools of this doctrine are already in motion. The Jose Rizal-class frigates, equipped with modern radar, sonar, and the Hanwha Naval Shield CMS, act as the central command nodes. The AW159 Wildcat helicopters extend their eyes and reach, carrying blue shark torpedoes to hunt submarines or threaten surface vessels beyond the horizon. Together, they form a detection and strike loop. The ship listens, the helicopter investigates, and both coordinate via data link to engage. This combination was theoretical when the first Rizal entered service in 2020. 5 years later, it forms the foundation of an operational network capable of defending waters like those around Pag-asa. The next layer of sea denial will be unmanned and missile-based. The upcoming Philippine Navy Drone Warfare Summit in Subic Bay at the end of October signals a clear intent to pair traditional ships with persistent surveillance from UAVs and maritime drones. These systems will provide 24-hour eyes over the EEZ, extending situational awareness far beyond radar range. In parallel, Manila is negotiating with South Korea for the CTM-ASBM coastal missile system, a truck-mounted anti-ship ballistic missile with a 160-kilometer range. When combined with the existing BrahMos batteries, this creates a two-layer coastal defense net capable of striking targets across the West Philippine Sea. The technology does not need to destroy fleets. It only needs to make their movement risky. Predictably, Beijing has responded with its own form of pressure. Just days after the collision, China announced naval exercises near Scarborough Shoal, signaling its intent to keep the entire Philippine maritime frontier under duress. But the context has changed. Manila is no longer reacting alone. Japan's first bilateral drills under the new Reciprocal Access Agreement took place earlier this month, while France and the Philippines are negotiating expanded naval cooperation for 2026. Each of these links strengthens the credibility of Manila's deterrence by ensuring that Chinese coercion triggers a multilateral response rather than an isolated one. Strategically, this is the most important transformation of the Philippine military since the end of the Cold War. For decades, the country relied almost entirely on its alliance with the United States, while maintaining a token Navy and Air Force. Horizon 3 has changed that trajectory. The new doctrine combines deterrence by presence, showing the flag where it matters, with denial by technology, ensuring that the enemy cannot act freely even when unchallenged. The collision at Pag-asa was not a failure of control. It was a proof of concept that pressure can now be met with structure, not just outrage. Challenges remain. The fleet still lacks sufficient Wildcats and drones to sustain long-duration patrols. The integration of different combat systems, Korean, British, and American, remains technically complex, and logistics chains for torpedoes, missiles, and spare parts are fragile. But these are growing pains of an expanding defense ecosystem. For the first time, the Philippines has a strategy that matches its geography and constraints. It does not seek to win a naval battle. It seeks to prevent one from happening. Pag-asa has become more than an island. It is the forward testing ground of a national doctrine, the meeting point between technology, strategy, and sovereignty. Every collision, every patrol, every radar track in those waters now feeds into a larger system of learning and adaptation. The Philippines' future defense posture will not be defined by the number of ships it owns, but by how effectively it links them together across air, sea, and land. In that sense, the sea denial era has already begun, quietly, persistently, and, as the events at Pag-asa show, under pressure.